Theo, Dedes, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. You're a football coach who recently coached the Hoffenheim team in Germany. So, can you tell us a little bit about the coaching role and what you've been doing?
Yeah, I was the head coach of the women's team of TSG Hoffenheim. It's a club that plays with both men and women's team in the first league, the first division. I was there for 1.5 years, and now yeah, we made it until now. We terminated the contract, so I'm now a free agent, as we call in the football world, and I'm just looking forward what comes next in the future. Yeah.
Interesting. So, I know you also recently got your pro coaching license. So, can you talk a little bit about how is that process like, and what type of licenses and stuff do you need in order to be a professional coach?
Yeah, of course. There are several levels. You start like with UEFA is for Europe is the main institution that gives out the licenses, so you can be registered as a coach and have some level of coaching experience to be able to train in different divisions. So you start with UEFA C. There's the B. Then there's the A, and at the end is the pro license, the one that I did, which takes around 1 year. In some countries, 1 year, in other countries, 2 years to attain. And then, yeah, we visited really intensive courses, had visit studies in different countries and big clubs. So we get the experience from the experts in our sector, and of course we're getting exams and trying to or have to prepare presentations and stuff like that to show how we work. But it's really a reality-based way of learning. And at the end, with the pro license that I have now, I'm eligible to coach every division from Champions League, which is like the highest, a national team, or in any first league in throughout Europe and mostly throughout the world, because it's the most recognized license, yeah, in the sector of football.
Yeah. So now you mentioned you're a free agent. So looking ahead for 2026, what's the goal? Is it to find a new team and be head coach there?
Yeah, first of all, take some days off because it was a really intensive time. I used to be in another club before going to Hoffenheim, so it was around 4 years nonstop working, and now I will take a rest for the holidays over Christmas, and then of course I'm now open to see what the next step is gonna be, which club will show an interest in me and in my work, to try to find out, yeah, where I'm gonna be after January.
Yeah, interesting. The role of the coach has developed a lot in the last couple of years, and it's much now. Also, you need to take in consideration maybe data and gameplay, and there's so much going on. So it has evolved from more of a only coach or maybe more of a manager role. So how have you experienced this transition in the coach role?
Yeah, that's exactly as you said it. And for me, was in Hoffenheim, it was the first time I had a staff of around 20 people that I had to manage. So the first thing that you miss is the time, because for me it's really important when I give time to something to have also quality time. If it is a chat with a player or with a coworker, or if it is preparing, for example, the game plans, the analysis of the opponents. There are different departments now. We have a medical department, we have a performance department, which is responsible for the performance of the player in terms of fitness, and then you have the department of the coaches who prepare the tactics of every game, the analysis department who analyzes how we played, how we want to play the next game, how the opponent is going to be playing. So there is a lot of detail there, and then the managerial skills of the head coach are getting even more importance than just to know the game, which was the way it was before. And it's quite interesting because the concept of being a manager is in England something that it's quite well known, and for many years, like since 30 years, that the head coach is like the manager, but most of the work on the pitch is being done from the head coach, from the first team coaches. But in Germany, for example, the first coach, the head coach has mostly the football part, and everything managerial. There's a sports director who does it, but now it kind of steers in the way that we are talking about managers and less about head coaches.
Mm. And it might look glamorous from the outside that, being the manager, being the coach, but, what is something that maybe surprised you or something that you didn't expect in this role?
Well, I think I've never been a manager in any other sector, but I think many managers think, okay, I am in the center of everything, so I have the power. But at the end, you're mostly alone or lonesome because you decide, or a manager decides, and then you also have the responsibility, and everybody hides kind of behind that. So you have to have a big strength on what you're doing, but of course you have to be good enough so you minimize mistakes that would make you feel weak. Because in football, for the listeners that they know about football, is a really chaotic sport. It can happen really much during a game. And we are naive enough as coaches to think that we can control it. So we try to control the uncontrolled, and yeah, that's the possibility that you will lose in this kind of fight is really high. So you're kind of alone, and then you have to be strong enough to overcome, to be resilient enough. And that's something that made me realize I in Germany they say I cannot dance in any in all of the dances at the same time. So I have to focus on two or three things that I'm really good at, and then give the responsibility for stuff to others if I'm not the best one between our team.
Mm. What are some things that you might not be able to prepare for? You said some like uncontrollable. So, for example, maybe a player getting injured might be some things, but
Of course.
what else could it be?
The opponent tries something else that what you prepared for. Of course, it can happen during the game that you get a red card, and then you have to play with less players. Or, as you said, maybe the plan that you prepared for doesn't work in this game and doesn't bring the goals or the success that you want. So you have to be ready, and you have to have a team that will give you some advice or some tips. Okay, let's try this one, or let's try that one, or having already before the plan B or C. And then if we take it away from the game, the match day at the weekend, it can also be during the week. Challenges like, as you said, a player gets injured who is integral for the way of you are playing, so you have to change everything. You have to change your tactics, or personal problems between players, or people that they are not satisfied with their performance, which you don't have in a normal, not so often and not every week in a normal firm or in a normal corporation. You have it like every week in football because, okay, 11 players or 15 played, but there are others that they didn't play at all. So you have to manage that. And in a normal firm, probably after 3 or 6 months, you're going to be talking about something if there's a problem with I don't know, the ratings or whatever. But we have it like daily, and we have it. Oh, I had a bad training. How can I get better? And every day you have to face this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And as you said, in a regular job, if you call it like that, then maybe not everyone is fighting for someone else's position in the same way as you said. You have 11 starting players, but there are also people on the bench who wants to get in there, and that type of that also creates friction, I guess, to some point.
Exactly, exactly. That's why empathy is a number one thing. And of course, you have also to be showing to people that they are important, even though they are not playing. Because in a normal, as you said, in a regular job, everybody has their task, and they are performing in this task. But we have players that maybe for 3 or 4 weeks they are not allowed to play. because others are better or others are more suitable to play that game. So in this situation, a lot of communication and a lot of motivation in another way to keep on all of the players and all of the people to be able to perform. And as I said before, now also in the women's game, but the men's game, it's a really big, enormous amount of games. There are teams that they play 60 or 65 games in a year. So imagine playing every 3 days and you have to perform. You're in front of fans and then you have to win. And if you don't play, then you have to change something. So it's pretty big. It's getting pretty big.
Yeah, I understand that. And football and many sports obviously are extremely results driven and focused. And of course, every company wants to make a profit and they want to win, so to speak. But like you have games every week, and fans and whatever investors or
Exactly.
everyone who's invested in the team somehow is expecting you to win. So how's it like to deal with that type of pressure and still, seeing the big picture and the long game?
That's exactly the tricky part, and that's exactly what makes it at one side really, really interesting because you really want to make it, and these are mostly the people that they're in this kind of sport industry. Okay, I want to do something that it's almost impossible, but that's also what makes yeah, the whole thing really stressful because you cannot guarantee that you will win. There are coaches that they never won a title. There are players that they lost more games than they won. So to get back on the next day, on the next morning, and keep on working on that, that's the biggest challenge, and that's what I see when I had the chance during the pro license also. To see in the biggest clubs which players and which coaches make it there and stay there. These are the ones with the mindset, whatever it happens, I will keep on working on that. And of course, they're good, they're experts, they have some talents, of course, but to stay there and to be able at the end to win some silverware or whatever, you really have to have the mindset of keep on going, learning, changing, but still believing on, okay, I will make it. Because if it breaks you, then most probably you're not gonna be spending too many years in this branch. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I mean, you're fairly young as well, and having this, yeah, manager role. And you said you were managing 20 people at the club that you were recently. Is there any challenges coming with being younger in age when you're having a managerial position like a head coach or manager?
Of course, yeah, but also I think there's a lot of positive things also. The first thing is you have to win respect, and you know that respect you win it either through knowledge and being good in what you're doing, but also on giving everything that you have. Because if people see that you care, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who told people only care how much you know if they know how much you care. So you can win these people over and win their respect if you show that you really care and you also want to get better, to be open for feedback and stuff like that. On the other side, of course, you have to be good because if you're not good enough, there's someone else that maybe is going to be doing a better job. So and at some point, it's going to be a change. So yeah, being young right now in the world of football is kind of a trend to have young coaches. So I kind of profit a bit from that, I think, because they're a lot more open-minded than the years before. Because the years before it was like, we really need the guy who has the experience, who did it for 20, 30 years. You know, the joke about we need a new coach, but he has to have 10 years experience, and you are there with 35 and say, okay, when do I have to win this experience? But I started really, really early because I didn't play professionally football. So I studied sports and then I started coaching with 22. So I can now say that I'm 35. I'm pretty young for a football coach, but I already have around 12 years of experience in coaching. So that's also kind of an advantage.
Hmm. But you said you haven't played pro, but you have played football growing up, so you know the game fairly well, I assume.
Yeah. I used to spend almost every minute outside of school playing football, and I come from Athens, so I had to play in smaller areas because it's quite dense. And yeah, kept on playing also when I moved over to Germany for studies, and then but in amateur leagues. So I played where the real football is being played.
I love it. Another aspect of the coaching role and manager role that I think not everyone is thinking about is like the marketing aspect of the coach and how important that person is for the club's image. So is that also something that you think about in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about football is that it's also really political or a social phenomenon, also called. So every club has its own identity, and also the fans and the people working there, they also share this kind of identity. So to be a coach, you really have to have also an identity. Um, what kind of principles do I want? What kind of values do I want in my life? And during the way that you give interviews, the way you are acting during the games is something that it really has to go in the same direction like the club. So, for example, there are coaches that they have as their trademark that they are like fiery on the line, and they are the biggest motivators. But there are others that they are more like, okay, he's the wise guy. He knows what he's talking about. He doesn't have to even move an eyebrow, and everybody knows what's going on. Yeah, it's about authenticity and to know what am I selling? Am I the guy who knows really good what he's doing and he's a freak about tactics, or am I a guy who is really communicative and that's how I win people? So yeah, kind of having an identity in trademarks is something that plays a big role right now.
Mm. And then, because in order to be authentic, you need to be yourself, but then your values need to align with the club's values as well. Is that something that, like in the hiring process, getting to a new team, that you align on where you stand on values and things like that?
I think both ways, both coaches try. Of course, it depends if you're like 2 or 3 years without a club, and maybe you are gonna be letting your values slide a bit, so you get a job again because the competition is too high. But I think both coaches try to find a club where they can identify, but also meanwhile the clubs are also screening the coaches in this matter. Also, it doesn't only matter that you're good in training a team and coaching a team, but also to be able and suitable to what the club represents. So that's of course a process, and we have to be honest many times. I mean, in every corporation we hear about, here we are a family, and everybody wants to be a family and have a good atmosphere and be in harmony, but reality does it's not always like that. And many times when you have a meeting before, you speak about stuff, but then in reality it's not the same. So it's a big challenge, and at the end we are talking about a lot of money in the biggest stage, like in the first men's league or Champions League. So values are not always to be seen when it's about a really big sum of money. So that's also something that I don't really like, but I will have to play with.
I understand that. Is like you have been now coaching in Germany, you are from Athens, Greece. Do you see any differences in how clubs are run and the coaching role between the countries?
Yeah, of course. It still depends on the level where you are moving, but in Greece we have a bit more of a one-man show leadership. So there is a president or a director, and he's the one who says what is gonna be done. And the coaching role is yeah, a bit more of a puppet. So as long as it works, it's okay. If it doesn't work, is the next one coming? In Germany, not all of them, but the clubs that I value and that I have heard and seen is more of a, okay, we have a project, and this kind of coach is gonna be suitable for this concept or project. But of course, if we see that after 4 or 5, 6 months, it doesn't go to the direction that we thought, then of course it's again can be also the decision that you part ways. But it's kind of more of a process, a bit more, and not centralized like the Greek way of doing things.
I understand. You mentioned that there's a lot, it's difficult to get a job as a coach now. So is it a lot of, it's a lot of coaches and not as many teams. So you really need to, it's hard to get a job.
To be a head coach,
Hmm.
the good thing is that the sport progressed so much, and there are, as I said before, there are so many aspects of it that you can find as an assistant coach to be. Of course, you have to be ready to be not in the central role and be an assistant coach. You can be an analyst, you can be a performance coach, and stuff like that. So the specialities which you can pick off and then work on it, it's getting a lot better, and there are a lot of options, but still there is competition who is the best to get this position. But of course, as head coach, and the higher you get, the less the positions are there, and then it depends on, of course, success, because most of the people, they would look at your success in your previous clubs, but also in the network that you're having, and people to be able to know that you're available and that you're good enough to take over a position that it's going to be vacant.
I understand. I'm interested in your journey. We mentioned that you're from Athens, Greece, and growing up playing football there. But how's your journey been like? When did you decide to move to Germany, and how's your career been?
Yeah, since I know that you have also a bit of a Greek past, I will use the analogy of an Odyssey. Actually, I didn't even know that I will be in Germany. I started playing in Greece in a local academy, and then I started with my studies in management, international management for one year in Greece, and I was quite good in German, so my teacher told me, "Hey, you should try to be an exchange student in Germany if you want to learn the language even better." And then I went for one semester, and actually the goal was to come back after these 6 months. But within 2 or 3 months, I decided I quite like it here, and I want to stay in Germany. And I started my new studies after 1 year and a half. I had to wait to get accepted, and then I started my sports science and German studies to be a teacher at the school, which after some semesters I decided it's also not what I really want to do, because I wanted to be with motivated people, and I wanted this week in, week out, always be at your top performance. So that's how I started coaching, and I started coaching from children with 3, 4, 5 years old. Then I had some refugees programs with people that are 50 years old, and I had men, I had women, whatever you can think about in amateur football, and yeah, somehow I got seen or scouted, and then the first chance came to get to the next level of one team, and a mid amateur, and then the first professional one in a women's game, and that's how I reached the point that I have the pro license and I can say that I'm a professional coach.
Wow, that's a great journey. And what was it with Germany that made you want to stay there, that you liked?
Well, there's a big cultural difference about organization and things working on the time that you want and on the time that they are planned. So that was great for me. But I think always as a young or as a teenager, I was quite excited of seeing different things. And the north of Germany is quite different than the south of Greece, where I grew up. So. Um, a lot of things were new, and I was quite excited, and I loved it because everything was like how I imagined it. And with the time, I can say that one thing that is the most important thing that won me from Germany is that if you're good, this country is fair. you have a fair chance to succeed and to promote yourself to other stuff. Because if you work, and work is one of the fetishes of the Germans, they really like to talk and do a lot about work. And so if you work, they will see it and they will recognize it, and also award it. So that made me always having more and more. I felt like confirmed. I felt that people see what I'm doing, and I think that's why I developed myself to be almost a half German. For many Greeks, I'm the German, and for for many Germans, I'm the Greek. So I'm kind of between things in that matter.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And I mean, the Germans are famous for their structure and,
Yeah.
on time and all of that. And it's similar with Sweden. I felt that also with Greece, that Greece is very loose, if you say, with this type of things. And maybe Sweden and Germany is a bit more square.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it depends on what you like. I feel like some place in the middle maybe is the sweet spot. But yeah.
Okay, the food and the sun of Greece, you cannot find it anywhere. So, of course, I enjoy the time being here, and maybe someday it will be combined with also working in Greece. But right now, I'm quite satisfied with Central Europe, to
I
say.
I understand. We've talked about it before we hit record here also, that there's been 1 hour of sun in Sweden for all of December. So that's what the Greeks have, that for sure.
Sorry about that.
Um, when you're looking back at your career, I mean, it's for sure not over. It's just getting started. But for the years that has been so far, has there been any bumps on the road, any difficulties? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, of course. Also, we can start with with the fresh news, like that I am not the coach of the TSG Hoffenheim anymore. It was also something that most probably I had to experience. There is a saying between coaches that you're a real coach first after you terminate a contract with a club, or get fired, if you want to say it in this way. But there was a lot of learning. I don't see it like, okay, that was a bump, or I failed or something like that. But there was a lot of learning and a lot of stuff. I always had my eyes open, and there have been already two times that as an assistant coach, there is a head coach coming, the new one, and said, okay, we are not going to be needing you anymore. And it doesn't, it wasn't like based on my quality or the work that I was doing. It was only because he just needed his own people. And of course, you stay there and you say, hey, what's going on? Why? I didn't do anything wrong. And you have to fight a bit with yourself. But then that's what I learned, is that life doesn't end in one club, in one experience, in one country, and it goes on. And that's why I called it an odyssey, because you don't know what comes next, but you have somehow to prepare yourself, and then learning by doing. Because as I said, we cannot control life like we cannot control football. So we want it, but perfection is not possible in this life.
No, of course. And as you said, you can still pull like learnings and positive things that you take with you in your next coaching role.
One big thing for me is, because we talked about intercultural differences, is about the outcome of the things that I say or my body language, because it's quite different being from Southern Europe, the way we move, the tone that we are talking to each other. And this was a big learning of how do I get to understand my environment in every new club, and my new co-workers or my players, or also my up management, like the people above me. And how can I um, express my real intentions without being misinterpreted. So that was something that it's still a big challenge, but I think that's the biggest one, of getting people to really know me, that to understand that I have good intentions, and not just pick reactions or things that I say to say, but that doesn't work. If
Mm.
if, if it makes sense for.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, you need to adapt to your environment, but it was what we said before also that I mean, you need to be true to yourself and your style, but it also need to work in the environment. So it's that balance all the time.
Yeah. The basement or the fundament of communication, and that's something that I had to learn because the Greek the Greek way of growing up, it was a lot about kind of authoritarian way of the teachers or the coaches. They are the respected person, and then you're not allowed to give any contras or whatever. So I had to get rid of that, what I learned before. Okay, that is to be a teacher and that is to be a coach, and to be more able to adapt, and also to show empathy to the people around me, so they know that I really care.
Yeah. I mean, that's tricky. I had, when I studied in Greece, you have to address your teachers and professors with, last name, like Mr. and Mrs. last name or doctor last name if they have an advanced degree. And in Sweden, we just call them by first name. And by like I was so afraid to, have a mishap with that. And on the flip side, when I came to Sweden and she went to study here, it was the opposite. She felt like it was so difficult to call them by first name when you have grown up.
I
So,
had exactly the same in the university because, of course, I studied sports, and that's even more casual to talk. And I was talking with one of my teachers and professors. He was like 60 and I was 19, and I could say you and not like in German, there is a distinction between the formal you and the other you, and call him with his first name. And I couldn't do it. The others would do it, and I couldn't. I said I cannot address my professor like that. But he said, no, no worries, you can do it. So these are things that they seem like details or small, but they play a big role of opening your mind and understanding that your environment and the context where you're into is what is important, and not only, okay, this is my way, I will do it like that, and everybody has to dance around me. So that was a big learning for sure.
mentioned like authoritarian leaders, maybe a little bit more in Greece versus what you have in Germany. How would you describe your own leadership style?
It's kind of transforming. I used to be the one man make doing it all because I think I can do everything better. But it's also kind of based on when I started in amateur clubs, then I didn't have a staff, or I had staff that would do it voluntarily, so I couldn't tell them, hey, you have to work that out and you have to work that out. So I will take a lot of responsibility onto me, which also injures myself, because if it doesn't work, I am the only one who is responsible. You can make an analogy to a tennis player and a football player. If you're playing tennis and you lose, then most probably you are wrong, and there's nothing else to blame. But in a team sport, you can always find an excuse. So I used to be like that, and I used to be like that 24/7. So I thought that that is the bare minimum, to be 24/7 only thinking about football and getting better and preparing stuff and things like that. So when I get into a stuff like with a lot more people, um, this was my expectation level, and that creates many times how can I call it? A misinterpretation of the performance of people. If you expect so much, and if you expect everybody to be exactly the same like you, then most of the time you're gonna be disappointed. So I had to learn that I have to maybe let the standards a bit lower and deeper, and try to understand how this person can help me as a manager and what are their strengths, instead of expecting from them to do exactly what I do or even better. Because I said, okay, I want you to be helping me, but every time I was expecting them to be exactly the same or even better than me, and that's something that it's unfair. And at the end, it doesn't also show recognition to your core workers if you are just saying, okay, that's good, but let's do that one, and then the next one, and the next one. So sometimes we just have to take a step back and relax a bit.
Yeah. Do you think, because you mentioned that nowadays it's more trendy, if you call it like that, to have younger coaches, and before it was a little bit older, do you think that this authoritarian style maybe is more in the older generation of coaches and maybe not as much now with the younger ones?
For sure, for sure, and only about the coaches, but I think the players are different. So this kind of authoritarian style of managing or leading is something that it cannot work to the new generation of players because they now are they grew up with a different style of leading. They participate in decisions, they participate in the progress, in their own progress. So it's not like the input output, okay, you have to do that and you're going to be getting better, but it's a journey that you do together with your players. So when you are trying with the authoritarian style with this kind of players and people, most of the time you're going to be losing them because they say, okay, why are you shouting now? You can just explain it to me in a normal way. Or why do you expect that much? I need my time to progress. So that's something that I realized also as an assistant coach when I had head coaches that they were like the old generation, and I was the young assistant coach between the head coach and the player. And the players would come to me and say, "Hey, what do I have to do?" The coach doesn't talk to me, and the coaches would say he just has to train and I don't have to talk with him, he just has to train. So and I hope you understand what I mean. There was a gap between generational way of thinking, and there are many leaders that we also met in the last year from big clubs like Barcelona, Bayern München, and other clubs that they also yeah confirmed that this kind of leading is something that it cannot work so good at right now in football, except for some situations like you're playing against relegation and you need someone who comes inside and says, okay, now that's what we are doing it. We have this for 6 weeks and we have to make it. So that's it. We don't talk about it. But in a mid or long term way of thinking, I don't think it's modern anymore.
No, and it's an interesting point that you brought up also that the players have different needs now, and society at large is a lot different with this type of things than maybe it was 20, 30, 40 years ago as well. And of course, then the leadership style needs to follow that as well.
I have a really good example on that. We had a game with a men's team, and I was the assistant coach, and the head coach had kind of a rant and yeah, said to everybody what they did wrong. And I got two different reactions. I talked with one player who was 32 at the time, so one of the older ones, and he said, "Okay, we needed that because we weren't good." And then you had like the 23, 24 years old, and they said, why we don't need that. You just have to tell us what to do and be positive and solution orientated, and we are going to be making it. So and that's when I realized, okay, this is a gap of generations because the first one learned it like that and he needs this kind of shock culture, but the other one doesn't know it, and it feels aggressive. It feels like you don't like me, or you're not helping me.
Interesting. So if someone wants to make a similar career journey as you have done and become a pro football coach, what would be some advice that you had for them?
Yeah, the first thing is, as I said, because there's a lot of competition, a lot of knowledge. It has to be an investment on ourselves that we really put this priority. Okay, I have to get really good at it, and being good at it means learn a lot through watching, doing licenses or learning, but it's also about doing practically. And many coaches, young coaches, they really want to get to the highest level really fast, so they don't take the time just to concentrate to what they have right now. So if I have an amateur team or a youth team, then I have to get the best out of this team and not thinking, okay, what is going to be my next step? So I never used to think, okay, next year I have to be there, or in five. I What I really don't like is this question, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? Because if you would ask me 15 years ago where I would be, I would never say to you that I would be here where I am now. I couldn't imagine it. So. Um, That would be the first, and the second one is, as I told before, um, everything is about losing and learning that you're gonna be having failures, bumps, you're gonna be losing a lot, and not everything works the up way. It's not a straight line. Is a line with backs and forwards and twists and turns, and that's why I would say resilience is one of the most important skill as mindset to get to the highest level, because you have to love it and you have to give everything that you have. And as Jürgen Klopp, one of the biggest or most important coaches of our time, said, "I am here to get everything, not to get everything. I'm here to give everything." So give everything that you have, and most probably you're gonna be making it to some level. Um, Before thinking about what you're going to be getting, because of course you mentioned it before, it's the glamour style of being in front of the cameras, and people want to be next to you and having a lot of money if you make it to the highest level. And that's why be ready to lose, prepare yourself, which is always, preparation is everything. And then yeah, if you're halfway good enough, then you're going to be having a position in football.
Mm. That's great advice. I like that. And then I'm crossing out the question on what you do in 5 years. And um, I we were introduced. I like networking questions, and I think for people listening that they want to get into the industry, networking is a great tool. And we were introduced by Ursula Basti, who's been on the show before. So, who do you think from your network would be a good guest on this show?
Wow, yeah, that's that's a good question. I think the first person that comes to mind is my educator from the German Football Association. Arno Michels is his name, because now he's educating the best coaches to come, and he used to be the assistant coach on one of the best coaches of our time, Thomas Tuchel, and he won um, a lot of things in international level, in Champions League level. So he was in Paris Saint-Germain, one club, yeah, led by the Qataris, I think. So it's a big corporation. So I think it would be really interesting for you to talk with someone who experienced how it is to be in a coaching stuff, and being at the highest level of football, and also with politics engaged and stuff like that. So that's the first person that came to mind, and that's why I would suggest Arno Michels. Yeah,
That's a great name. Thank you so much for that.
no worries.
Theo, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join Sports Management Podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. Thank you very much.